Listen, Tim Ream's got a little bit of credit under his belt. He's got a little bit of credit to his name. That's just the reality. Right now, he's CB1 in the eyes of many. It is a fracture. Fractures usually take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks. You're 45 days out from the Nations League semifinal in Las Vegas. It doesn't leave you a whole lot of room. Here are the positives with Tim Ream. I told you about the credit. Another positive with Tim Ream is it's not a weight-bearing bone. If it was his fifth metatarsal, if it was somewhere around the knee, the tibia, something that's weight-bearing, I would say this is bad news. But it's the arm. It's a place where you're not going to be in constant impact with. You can rehab and potentially get there around that same date. I don't think this should be a player for his attributes. That's not like a very physical player in terms of crashing, bashing, coming into the 9. He's more of a technical center back. I don't think it'd be too big of a deal. I'm not too worried about it. So the credit, the timeline, the place of the injury, this is just an unfortunate ending to a very, very good career year.
So you said 6 to 8 weeks there. We got 6 weeks to the CONCACAF Nations League. If I do the math, even if he were to come back, it doesn't leave him much time to get in shape. Here's my worry.
It's his arm. You can get in shape.
Okay. You know better than I. I would assume it's tougher to stay in shape when you got a fractured arm. But regardless, if he's not ready, Herc, let's say he's not ready. I don't think that's too much of a stretch.
No.
I think that might have an impact on his future because he's of the age where at least the fan base and maybe even the new manager, when you think of Tim Ream, you kind of have to project out to the World Cup, don't you? And at some point, especially if somebody like in the Nations League, which is A versus A, comes in and plays that position well, then the coach has a headache, right? Even if Tim Ream continues on with Fulham, you kind of at some point need to refresh that position, don't you? Absolutely.
And majority of fans won't be in this train of thought, but it's so funny to me because Tim Ream, in the eyes of many, is like the exception to the rule. Before, it's like, hey, you have to plan for the World Cup. The World Cup's 3 years out. Tim Ream's kind of the exception for a majority of fans because of how well he did and because of his leadership qualities with this very young team. If you look at a player like Tim Ream, let's say the next coach comes in and he says, I need a very athletic back. A very athletic duo at the center back position. Tim Ream's not necessarily going to be that guy, even though that's what Greg Berhalter told us his position in the center back position required, because that's what he said about the omission to John Anthony Brooks, why he couldn't play, because he can't play in a high back line. He's not athletic enough. He used Tim Ream there, and Tim Ream won himself that spot, won himself the respect and credit of the general public. But I'm with you. If you're talking about down the road, the probabilities of a 38-year-old Tim Ream being your center back 1 or CB2 in a World Cup are limited, but you still need somebody there to hand off the torch to the next. You still need somebody there to lead this younger generation, and maybe center backs like a Cameron Carter-Vickers, like an Austin Trusty, like a who else would you like there that I'm forgetting right now? Mark McKenzie, things like that. Those type of players, you want them to learn from a player like Tim Ream.
Yeah. To your point about the great season he's had, you could hear in the post-game interview from the manager, Marco Silva, just how heartbreaking it was for him to lose Tim Ream. And then you saw it from the fans there as well. They gave him an ovation as he walked off. I think they knew it was probably a serious injury, potentially season-ending. So massive season for Tim Ream at Fulham, and we wish him a speedy recovery.
One of my 2 mea culpas in my punditry history.
You have been wrong a time or two.
I've only done 2 mea culpas, and he's one of them. The other one is Jim Curtin.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.